Okay, so the next item will be the snap menu. And the snap menu can be found here under the object menu. If you go up here to snap, and you see the shortcut for that is Shift S. That's for the submenu there, and we'll be using Shift S. So starting from the top, it's selection to grid. So remember, we had the grid settings before in the last video. So let's say if we take this box, the snapping is off, and let's just randomly move it around, and we can see it's in a random location there. If I do Shift S, selection to grid, it'll pop it to the closest grid setting, which is the scale setting, remember, in perspective view. However, if we are in orthographic view, top view, orthographic, and this is off, so that if I move this around, you see it's going to be in a random place, right? Random location there. But the grid squares, subdivisions, we can see those now. So those are set to 10, which is basically a 0.1 increment of 1, right? So and we go Shift S, selection to grid, and it'll pop right to one of those subdivision squares. Okay. So if I zoom out again, though, it will pop to the closest scale setting, whatever is visible here. So it's kind of visual oriented. Okay, so or should I say visibility oriented to be more proper. Okay, so the next item, selection to cursor. So if you have, let's put the cursor over here in a random place, right? Remember, the cursor can be anywhere randomly if you left click and put it there, right? And don't also forget that you can see the cursor position here in this tab here. Location of the cursor is right here. As you can see, it's in a random spot. All right, so we go selection to cursor. Okay. And if you have more than one item selected, they will all pop to the cursor. Okay. And then so the next item on the list is selection to cursor offset, which will take the bounding box of those items and put them to the center of the cursor. Okay. And then the next one after that is selection to active. So if you remember, select, shift select, and the last one selected is the active. So the camera, the light are going to go to the box. Selection to active. Okay, self-explanatory. The next one is cursor to selected. So now the cursor is in its random spot here, and I want to put it to where the cube is here. So let's go cursor to selected, and now the cube is there, and as you can see down here, the cursor is there also, same place, same location. Okay, and then the next one is cursor to center, and this comes in real handy when you're doing adding items. A lot of times you want it to be right at the center. Okay, so if you go Shift A to add something, let's say a cube, and then you're adding it right at the center. If you have the cursor over here and Shift A, and add like a circle, it'll add it over there. Okay, so that's just one use of that. But anyway, so that's cursor to center. Okay, and then the next one is cursor to grid, and that's going to be self-explanatory because we just covered that with the selection to grid. So as you can see where the cursor is located, and the 3D cursor, my 3D there it went. Okay, so 3D cursor is right there, so it's a random location, right? And then cursor to grid, and it pops to the closest grid spot, and of course it would also apply in the orthographic view, right? Of course, so we'll snap to the closest grid spot of these subdivisions. Okay, so that's that one. The last item is cursor to active, and so if you had several items selected, rather than cursor to selected, it would go to cursor to active. So cursor to active, and it pops right there. Remember that cursor to selected would also mean the center of those bounding boxes. So if you went cursor to selected, it would pop it in the bounding box center of those, right? And then cursor to active, of course, is going to go to the last one selected. All right? So that covers the snapping menu, and I hope you find that helpful.